Once the boycott was over, Dr. King and other Black ministers and leaders formed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The goal of the SCLC was to change unfair laws. Dr. King spoke to African Americans about peaceful ways to protest. He wanted to change unfair laws, but he wanted to change them in nonviolent ways. He asked Black Americans to go to places that only white people were allowed to go. He encouraged them to sit peacefully and not to respond with force. Black people went to restaurants, stores, and parks. They drank at drinking fountains with whites-only signs above them. Some Black people were put in jail, but that did not discourage them from protesting and asking for change. At that time, Coretta had 4 children, Yolanda, Martin III, Dexter, and Bernice. Dr. King was now known as a great civil rights leader, and he wanted to spend more time helping the SCLC. Dr. King told his congregation that it was time for his family to move to Atlanta. In 1963, Dr. King went to Birmingham, Alabama, because it was considered one of the most racially divided cities in the South. Birmingham had specific laws forbidding protests and marches. The police chief, Eugene Bull Connor, did not like African Americans. When Dr. King organized a peaceful march, the police chief ordered the police to arrest him. Each day, more people marched and more people were arrested. Black people were not only arrested, but they were attacked by dogs and sprayed with water from fire hoses. Even children participating in the marches were arrested. Finally, city officials agreed to meet with Dr. King and other civil rights leaders to end the unfair laws in Birmingham. The march was a success. I have a dream. On August 28, 1963, over 250,000 people marched in Washington, D.C., and gathered in front of the Lincoln Memorial to listen to Dr. King's famous I Have a Dream speech. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. People cheered, they joined hands and sang the song, We Shall Overcome. In 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The prize was created by Dr. Alfred Nobel, a Swedish inventor. The Nobel Peace Prize honors someone who has worked hard promoting peace that year. At 35 years old, Dr. King was the youngest person to have ever received this honor. He and his wife, Coretta, flew to Norway to accept the prize. In 1965, Dr. King went to Selma, Alabama to help African Americans register to vote. He organized a march from Selma, Alabama to the state capitol building in Montgomery. The police tried to stop the march by using tear gas and clubs. Many people were hurt. Some marchers were arrested and put into jail. Dr. King asked religious leaders and other nonviolent demonstrators to join the march. The 54-mile march lasted 5 days, with 300 people reaching Montgomery on March 25th. President Lyndon B. Johnson urged Congress to pass a bill giving blacks and whites the same voting rights. On August 6, 1965, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act. Dr. King wanted to help poor people in Chicago, Illinois. He realized that people of many different races were poor, and he wanted to help. Dr. King organized a Poor People's March to take place in Washington, D.C., but a few weeks before the march, Dr. King learned of African American garbage workers that had gone on strike. They were asking for equal pay, and Dr. King wanted to show his support. He traveled to Memphis, Tennessee, and checked into a motel. On April 4, 1968, when Dr. King stepped out of his hotel room to have dinner with friends, he was shot. James Earl Ray was an escaped convict that hated black people. He killed Dr. King. The news spread quickly, and the world was shocked. Dr. King was only 39 years old when he died. The world had lost a great man. An old farm wagon carried Dr. King's casket pulled by 2 mules. More than 100,000 people followed silently behind. Millions watched on TV. On his tombstone are inscribed the words, free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Martin Luther King was a civil rights leader that believed all people should be treated equally. He believed that a person's skin color or race should not matter. Martin Luther King Jr. believed one person could make a difference. He believed using peaceful refusal would help change unfair laws. He said, I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. On November 2, 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a law making the 3rd Monday of January Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We celebrate his birthday and honor his life and work as a civil rights leader. Schools, banks, and all government buildings are closed on this day. People gather and have parades to pay tribute to Dr. King's work. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a national holiday where our nation comes together to remember this great man.